Professor Raoul Mortley says Bond University made an offer he couldn't refuse. After 3 years in Newcastle, he's headed back to the Gold Coast to again take up the Vice-Chancellor's reins at the private university, at a time when it's wrestling with a $95 million debt.
There's a bit of an element of risk, but I know the place fairly well, and it's about the most risk-free at the moment that it's ever been.
Professor Mortley is a troubleshooter. He's plugged the financial drain at Newcastle University, turning around an academic salaries budget blowout and shedding liabilities like Irene Hall and the University Flying School. He's also pushed for the university to generate its own wealth and for staff to work more as a team.
I see in the paper that some people think I'm autocratic. This probably explains why I get so many calls from executive search firms seeking to have me appointed to other universities. I'm afraid that's the lie of the land.
The departing Vice-Chancellor believes Newcastle University is now on the right path. He says it still needs fine-tuning and deserves far greater promotion around the country, but it stands as a fine centre for learning.
There are great assets within this university and many outstanding staff. It's got to be one of the best, if not the best, regional university in Australia.
UTS Olympic could be in for an ambush at Breakers Stadium. The Sydney Siders have established their form and are desperate to stay on top of the Ericsson Cup ladder. The Breakers, on the other hand, have run hot and cold over their last few matches.
It's going to be a tough game from their point of view. They've got a few injuries, a few suspensions, but the thing is that Olympic have been playing really well. They've been playing as a team the whole season, and they've had guys out in the past few weeks and they've knocked off teams like Sydney United at Sydney United's ground. They've knocked off Marconi at Marconi Stadium, and they've been convincing wins, 2-1s and 3-1s, things like that.
Coach Cosmina is pleased by the Breakers' recent victory over South Melbourne, and despite taking a loss against Adelaide, believes his team is in good form. Tonight's training session should decide whether David Lowe, down with a calf muscle injury, will take to the field, and Ralph Mayer is on the sick list as well.
Hickman and Roberts are back from suspension, but they're both defenders, and I'm tossing up whether to bring one of them in or two of them in, or just leave it as it was, because we changed the system a bit Tuesday night to accommodate the suspensions, and actually it worked quite well. So, you know, I've got a few options at the moment, which is good because we haven't had that in the past.
Having clawed its way out of receivership in the last 3 years, the Scone Abattoir is now on the brink of a promising new era. The government has given the final go-ahead to the company's plans for a $5 million expansion. The project will see the meatworks processing floors extended, as well as the establishment of a byproducts rendering plant and a value-added boning room.
We're attacking this project from a consumer point of view of what the customer wants. And we attempt to, when we finish, we'll have the most modern, up-to-date small abattoir in New South Wales.
The company says the expansion will create at least 70 new jobs. The boost in production is also expected to generate up to $7 million a year in additional livestock purchases. The development approval hinges on 55 conditions, mostly dealing with wastewater, air quality and odour management. The company says its measures will be more than adequate.
The community has been very concerned about the issues of air quality, of water quality, and we believe with the measures we've put in place with the biofilter and other things that we will have the most stringent controls of any abattoir in Australia.
The abattoir hopes to start work soon. The project will be staged over 3 years. Ian Cameron, NBN News. Picking a winner may seem a matter of luck to most of us, but research could be about to improve the odds. The government has made grants totalling $115,000 for scientific research into bloodstock breeding. The work will be carried out at the Scone Equine Research Centre. The goal, to improve the performance of racehorses bred in New South Wales.
We're determined to make this the centre of excellence for equine research and equine matters generally. And it will happen. This will be virtually the new market or the Kentucky of Australia, given enough time.
The government funds will be augmented by a $65,000 injection from the racing industry. In time, it's hoped the research centre will provide a focus for other equine activities as well. The promotion of recreational horse riding tipped to boost tourism in the Upper Hunter.
With the casualties from previous trials looking on, today's first v seconds trial was more of a game of grab rather than full contact. Nonetheless, the mock contest simulated match conditions and gave both teams a necessary run before the competition starts. That will hopefully be in a fortnight, while the juniors are likely to start next weekend. In the Northern Division trials in Tamworth, Group 21 had a win and a loss, allowing Everleigh, Randall, Pennell, Frost and Gardner to make the representative team for the country championships. Meantime, the Newcastle and Coalfield teams for their annual challenge match at Cessnock next Sunday were named today. 9 of Newcastle's 17-man squad are from West, while Curry's Brian Quinton will once again represent the Coalfields, which will be captained by Cessnock's Trevor Crowe.
"16-year-old Jodie Thomas was the only passenger in the car that collided head-on with another vehicle at Thornton near Maitland just after 11 last night. The part-time hairdresser and waitress from Raymond Terrace was killed instantly. The drivers of the vehicles are in the John Hunter Hospital. A 21-year-old Raymond Terrace woman is in the intensive care unit in a serious condition. A 33-year-old man, also from Raymond Terrace, is in a stable condition. A damaged tree and broken glass were the only signs of the early morning tragedy near Gresford.
Been travelling on the Patterson Road. He's come around a bend about 5 k's south of Gresford and has lost control of the vehicle, which has skidded into a tree.
37-year-old Eric Grant was on his way home after competing in a show jumping competition at the Gresford Show when he failed to negotiate the bend.
Speed and fatigue are contributing factors to the accident.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Council workers discovered 2 25-litre drums washed ashore at Boomerang Beach, Pacific Palms at 9 this morning. The Foster Fire Brigade retrieved the containers and placed them in hazardous material bins to await analysis by the Environmental Protection Authority. It's thought the drums contain either phosphoric acid, which is both corrosive and combustible, or an extremely dangerous chemical called vinyl trichlorosilane.
The worst scenario is the contents could be a highly inflammable liquid. When it comes in contact with water, it could be explosive. It's very dangerous to human beings.
Today's discovery is the third this week. The National Parks and Wildlife Service found 3 on Monday and 1 yesterday, all washed up on 7 Mile Beach just south of Foster. Mr Wilson says the drums all came from one source, most likely a passing ship. With a high possibility of more washing up, beachgoers are warned to be extremely cautious.
If people observe a drum on the beach, they should contact us through 000 straight away. Under no circumstances should they go and approach the drum to see what's in the drum or whether the drum's been damaged.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Beef cattle producers are facing breaking point. After 5 years of desperate dry weather, they've now been stung with an unexpected blow, the collapse of the cattle market.
After 5 tough years, we thought when we get a good season we'd get going again, but it's been the other way.
For producers who were forced into debt during the drought, it's the final nail in the coffin.
This is the last thing that we need. We've sort of seen prices have tumbled, down from 40% of where they've been.
Just 3 months ago, an average beast made $400, today around $240. The problem stems from an oversupply in the world market. Exports to Japan and America are drying up, sending prices plummeting. The industry is in shock with the tumbling prices. Here at the Singleton sale, there would normally be 1,000 head of cattle on the market. Today, there was just 300. And while there is no end in sight, some farmers will never give up, continuing the life they've come to love.
That's what we're there for. I still get out of bed at daylight, but if you get morbid about it, well, you never get out of bed.
That's true.
Richard Jones announced his resignation from the Democrats today, saying he'd been threatened with expulsion from the party after giving support to Labor candidates in the federal election. He says he'd just been trying to redress the balance, upset by his Democrat colleagues backing the Call to Australia party and other right-wing contenders. Best known as a campaigner for drug law reform, Mr Jones says the Democrats' hierarchy now regards him as too radical. He's found himself particularly at odds with the party's state leader, Liz Kirkby, questioning the 75-year-old parliamentarian's ability to grasp issues. Mr Jones says he'll serve in the upper house as an independent Green Democrat and that he'll seek to rejoin the party when Liz Kirkby steps down. For her part, Ms Kirkby says Mr Jones is morally obliged to resign from Parliament under the party's constitution. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
It's been a running sore for 10 years, what to do with Newcastle's athletic track at National Park. But as the track slowly fell apart, Lake Macquarie Council announced it would invest $3 million in a world-rated facility on this site at Glendale, giving the Hunter Region's athletes a top-class training and competition facility. Now, however, Newcastle Council is supporting a $200,000 boost for National Park, leaving the Lake Council stunned.
If that proposal does proceed, we'd obviously need to go back and look at our sums and work out how we could keep Glendale as a viable proposition.
Lake Council General Manager Robert Gray says two-class facilities wouldn't be able to survive with the number of athletes split between the centres. But that's been hotly refuted by the Newcastle branch of Athletics New South Wales, claiming this has been sorted out months ago.
We support the regional facility at Glendale, but we still want to provide the facilities in Newcastle for the Newcastle people and the Newcastle Athletics clubs.
The emotions overflowed this morning when Henderson and coach Bruce Gulliver were shown the Olympic squad by NBN. Henderson, who turned 25 on Wednesday, then rushed to the phone to inform his mother of the belated birthday present. Subject to fitness because only a month ago Henderson underwent surgery for a double athletic hernia, an operation which threatened to cruel his Olympic dream.
When it first came through that I had athletic hernias, I did some real deep soul searching, and I'm sure that goes through every athlete's mind. But, I kept positive, and I knew that I believed in myself and my coach, Bruce.
Such determination has been justly rewarded and fulfilling Athletic Australia's requirements close to a formality.
Well, mate, right now I feel like I could get out there and run 10-0.
Henderson will head to Europe or the United States for pre-Olympic competition. Last season in Gothenburg, he was one of the stars in Australia's silver medal performance in the relay and believes he and the team can emulate that performance.
I'm going to do an even bigger and better job in Atlanta, so, hopefully we can go one step better.
It's not a sport for the faint of heart. For up-and-coming star Maitland's Grant Bond, every time he races sidecars is a real thrill.
A track like this would probably be 140, 160 Ks. Pretty good. They don't have any brakes, and we only use 2 gears on it.
The New South Wales titles are on tomorrow night at Newcastle Showground, 16 of the state's best going for a top 2 placing.
You really need to qualify first or second to make it into the Australian titles.
Still on motorsport, and the Newcastle Motordrome is running a 50-lap street stock sedan championship tomorrow night. 40 races are gunning for the money. And also this weekend, round 1 of the New South Wales Motocross Championships at Lake Macquarie. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The major water supply for the Hunter area continues to be plagued by environmental problems. Now the users who have created the degradation are being asked to help clean it up. An issues paper produced by the State Government's Commission of Inquiry asks for help on finding solutions.
The process won't work without community input. It has to be a collaborative affair.
Some of the major problems for the Williams are identified as runoff from agriculture, cattle access to the water and waves caused by speedboats. A copy of the paper can be picked up from councils and public libraries. Community meetings will also be held by the Commission during April. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
After Friday's 1-point loss to Canberra, the Falcons made an impressive start against Illawarra at the Snake Pit. Newcastle led 20-4 in the first quarter, captain Butch Hayes helping to establish the break. But the home side's imports Andre Lafleur and Marcus Timmins, coupled with Terry Johnson, reeled in the Falcons. Lafleur's match-high 29 points helping the Hawks to victory. The third event of Surffest was contested at the Cliff today. The Central Coast Kyle Bryant downing Gavin Coleman and Simon Farah in the Pro Division final. It was a tight decider, finishing a three-way tie with the countback going in Bryant's favour. In the Pro-Am, Andrew Heaton was successful on his home break, defending his title from Belmont's Tim Gordon. And in soccer, Adamstown beat Blacktown City 1-0 in their State Super League encounter last night. It was Rosebud's first ever win against the Sydney Siders and keeps them in touch with the competition leaders. Competing in one of the qualifying events for the Sprint Car Gold Cup, Wayne Russell was one of the favourites for the heat. Track commentator Ross Allen believing this would be his first win at the Motordrome. Moments later, this happened. The touring car cum sprint car driver wasn't injured in the accident. The final was also a competitive race, with Jamie Jones outclassing his more experienced colleagues, with Scott Davis second and John Shaw third. In the Hunter Valley Street Stock Championship, Matthew Taylor led for the majority of the race, before the Falcon of Gary Morris took charge. Stephen West and Mark Everly filled the minor placings. In the modified rods, Greg Cassidy took out the final, ahead of John Brown and Scott Foy.
The body of Barbara Wilson was found in her bath at her South Street home at Windale last June. 48-year-old Graham Sloan has been charged with her murder. At a committal hearing in Belmont Local Court today, Senior Constable Joe Denyer said all the doors and windows of the house were locked, except a front window which was only opened about 100 millimetres. The police used a ladder to gain entry, and once inside they found Mrs Wilson's naked body with her clothes nearby. Constable Denyer said the house was neat and tidy, and the television and a light in the lounge room were turned on. The post-mortem was conducted by Dr Nick Ferguson, who told the court injuries to Barbara Wilson's left hand and her head were consistent with her being assaulted before being strangled. The committal hearing continues tomorrow. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Since the Mariners' part owner is News Limited, the club itself can't function because of federal court orders. So, hoping to get around the legal problem, its players have begun setting up a separate entity with a new name for the Global League. One suggestion, the Hunter Miners.
That name may have emanated from Sydney, but we certainly don't know anything about a name as yet.
But one thing that won't change is the players' resolve, adamant they won't return to the establishment.
The commitment that the other Super League clubs showed to the Mariners and the Rams by not hanging us out to dry, so to speak, has strengthened our resolve to support whatever moves they make.
Many of those moves will be challenged by the ARL, but the players have started to shape their proposed competition.
We've already done some work in regards to grounds and playing strips and all that sort of thing, so we have commenced sort of preparation.
For the Knights, the continued turmoil will hurt the club financially. They were expecting a crowd of 20,000 for their game against Cronulla at Marathon on Sunday, reaping around $60,000. Money they're unlikely to realise as footballers and fans try to untangle a mess that shows no sign of abating. Paul Gregg, NBN News.
According to the playwright Mark Reedman, the cast represents a typical cross-section of young people looking for work. There's a full-time trainee, a university student, a part-time worker and someone on a government allowance. And there's another who's just landed a new job. Steel Street Blues is a joint effort between Newcastle's Workers' Cultural Action Committee and the 2 till 5 Youth Theatre Group. The script based on the different experiences of youths across the Hunter. The production reflects the challenges faced by young people with and without jobs, those taking part in training schemes, and of one prepared to do anything for a pay packet. Steel Street Blues opens at the Community Arts Centre in Parry Street on Saturday night.
The conflict comes after Newcastle's Lord Mayor Greg Hees commented on the state government taking control of planning approval for a $700 million expansion for Port Waratah coal.
It's pretty frustrating. We feel we do a good job.
Touring the worksite of the Edgeworth wastewater treatment plant, Planning Minister Craig Knowles effectively told the Lord Mayor to butt out.
I made the decision to take control of that project in September last year, 6 months ago. If it's taken 6 months for the concerns to be realised, I wonder how long it would take to actually address the project if it went through the council.
And while the Minister has had no official complaints about the slowness of planning approvals through council, he said he was prepared to listen to any concerns from within the community. Meanwhile, the new Edgeworth treatment plant is on schedule for completion in 4 months. It will cater for 70,000 people, with assurances there'll be none of the odour problems which plagued the old plant. Peter Ryan, NBN News. It's a massive complex including 45 separate shops. Final touches are being applied for an opening next Thursday and what's expected to be a rush on spending.
We expect our sales to be in excess of $15 million in the first year.
Target is one of the major groups in the complex. Overall, the Glendale Stockland Centre will generate 1,000 jobs, but not everyone in the community is pleased. Down the road at Cardiff, shopkeepers are concerned about a loss of business. But the local Chamber of Commerce says Cardiff has fought the major centres before.
Cardiff's always will be affected like everyone else, but Cardiff will survive. We survived Jesmond, we survived Charlestown.
But groups like Target believe they're onto a good thing. Another story is going in at Charlestown. Sites have also been inspected at Maitland, Raymond Terrace and in the Newcastle CBD.
This time last year, BHP's steel division recorded a profit of $114 million, but in the last 12 months, earnings have fallen dramatically. This third quarter, the division's profit is $43 million, down $71 million on last year. BHP attributes the fall mainly to an increase in production costs and a serious slump in domestic demand, brought about by a collapse in the construction industry.
We've made up for the decline in the domestic market by exporting, but unfortunately at the same time export prices have dropped.
BHP has always refused to release profit figures for individual plants, so only the company knows just how well or how badly the facility here at Newcastle is doing. Group General Manager Bob Kirkby, however, says the situation is very serious indeed.
It's a grave situation. And obviously we've got to address it somehow or other.
Mr Kirkby, however, says the company believes the fall is only in the short term and is confident profits will improve. And he says future technology changes at the plant will still go ahead. BHP is planning to spend hundreds of millions of dollars introducing electric arc furnace technology in Newcastle around the turn of the century, enabling the ageing plant to compete with the rest of the world.
Our position on when we change technologies is as we've said.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.